You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Shamapande. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Let's Get Surety. I've got with me today my co-host, Mark McCallum, CEO of NASBP. Hey Mark, thanks for being on.
Hi Kat, thank you. I'm glad to rejoin.
I am glad to have you on. We're talking about a topic today that's important in the surety industry. We're going to be talking about construction risk mitigation and funds control. It's a pretty big topic.
It is a big topic, very critical topic. And particularly now, I think, with subcontractors under stress, I think it's really a great time to explore this topic.
I think so. And we've got a great guest with us today. We have Marcus Carter, president of Mesa Fund Control and Escrow Incorporated. Hey, Marcus, thanks for being on.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you guys and talk. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, before we dive into risk mitigation and funds control, Marcus, could you just kick off by telling us a little bit about yourself and about Mesa?
Yeah, you bet, Kat. So, I've been involved in risk mitigation for over 20 years. Started really with a background in lending and construction lending. And we started La Mesa Fund Control 18 years ago. And we're a licensed and bonded DFPI escrow company. And we specialize in risk mitigation specifically for the lending industry. We cater to lenders and also the surety space, but all things construction, and number of different products that we provide, but we've been doing it ever since. We have a national platform and been going strong and growing. So
that's great. And how'd you find your way to founding La Mesa?
Gosh, my background was lending. And so I have a construction background and a lending background. And I was running a small lending business that I'd started. And we were writing construction loans. And this is back in the early 2000s. So I'm going to date myself a little bit. But we were writing these loans and we were utilizing a third party fund control company here in San Diego that was a company that was a local fund control provider. And we used them for probably 3 or 4 years and developed a really great relationship with them. And in 2007, the manager called me and said, "Hey, Marcus, we're shutting down our fund control business. We just don't think we're going to do it any longer. We're really a lumber company that has this small division of a fund control company, and we're going to shut it down." So it took me about a week to really realize this was an important space and a really important tool to lenders and anybody in the construction space, surety as well. That's a needed tool. And so I called the manager back and I said, "Grace, let's start a fund control business. I think this is a needed product. People need it." And it took her about a week to get back to me. And she said, "Okay, let's do it." Fast forward 17 years later, we've got a great following, great reputation. We really have honed the process and made it easy for all parties. Grace just retired, so 18 years in, and she just literally retired. And so super exciting to see that kind of her next chapter of where she's going.
Yeah.
But, we've been doing it ever since, and we have a national platform. We work with a lot of different types of groups that need our services, and again, surety included. But yeah. I think it's an important tool in the construction space, and we're passionate about it, and I've been doing it ever since.
It is an important tool, and I just want to step back for a second. I know we're batting that term fund control around a lot. Why don't you, Marcus? Why don't you define for us, or give a good definition of what fund control is, and how it plays out in the surety space?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. So at its core is really what you want to do, and what fund control, the process is meant to do, is make sure that the money is going for a construction project. The money is going to the right spots. So in other words, subs and GCs and material suppliers are all getting paid. You want to make sure that the money is getting allocated to the right spots. But the second piece that you want to ensure that's really important in fund control is you want to make sure that money is not getting dispersed for work that hasn't been performed. In other words, you want to make sure that the disbursements align with what's happening on the ground so that a contractor is not over dispersed at any given time during that course of construction. So you're really managing those disbursements, making sure that you have eyes on that project to make sure that it's commensurate with money that's getting dispersed. So that's probably the best definition or explanation of what I can say fund control really is. So,
the payment process and payment flow, so critical in the construction realm, and particularly where margins may be low or they may be flat going into 2026. So tell us a little bit more about how that works, the mechanics of it. And then also, as you mentioned earlier, making sure that payments don't get out ahead of the work that's actually been performed satisfactory.
Yeah.
How is that evaluation done as well? So I know that's a lot of questions that I'm throwing at you.
Yeah, I'll try to take them in pieces, Mark. So so the first thing that we do is velocity of payment, speed of payments in construction is vitally important. It's vitally important to the success of a project. The last thing you want in a construction project is subs and material suppliers or the contractor not getting paid efficiently in a timely fashion. To keep those guys and those workers active and wanting to come back to the job site every single day, you have to make sure they're getting paid quickly and efficiently. So that's paramount. The way we do that is we work collaboratively directly with those contractors to make sure that when they submit that draw request to us, the paperwork's in order, and we're constantly letting them know if there's documents that are missing and what we need, and working directly with them to make sure that we have all our documentation and our ducks are in a row so that we can get payments out quickly and efficiently. The way we do that is really threefold. It's wires, it's checks, and it's ACH. Our preferred method of payment to the contractors and the subs and material suppliers is to pay them via ACH. It's quick, it's efficient, and it gets the money where it needs to go quickly. And once they're
seems to be the way of the world nowadays.
It really is. It really is. No more saying there's checks in the mails. No, money moves and it moves quickly. So, and it has to be. So the second piece of that to your question is, how do you make sure that the work's been performed? That's a really important piece that I think surety has been missing, in my opinion. So we come at this with a little bit different stance and position than the other players in this marketplace. We really feel like inspections are the third leg of the stool to make sure that the work is actually getting performed. So the first thing that we do when a draw request comes in is we do an inspection, and we verify that the work has been completed. And so we're meeting with that contractor, we're having eyes on the site immediately and viewing that work that contractor is invoicing for. So we want to see that work's been completed, and we create an internal, and call it an inspection report with photos of the site, and so that we can see exactly what's going on, so that the paperwork marries with the visual inspection and those photos of what's taken place on the site, so that we have that. One thing that we do, we create lots of visibility for the surety, for the agent involved, and for the contractor as well, as we have a portal and a platform that they can all log into, and they can see those site photos. The contractor actually uploads the way he submits a draw request is he submits a draw request online through our portal. Those photos of the inspection get uploaded to the site, and notes from our inspectors get populated. And then it keeps everybody aligned. It keeps the visibility for the surety, for the producer, and for the contractor, keeps them all aligned so that everybody knows what's going on with that project, who's getting paid for what work, and when they're getting paid. So really enhances communication. And we think those aspects, the communication, the photos, and keeping everybody aligned is really the key. It's the secret sauce to these projects hitting milestones and being completed on time and on budget.
And I can see that being very attractive from a number of perspectives, from the owner, the surety, the GC, all of that, for different reasons, perhaps in part, but very important to have that shared understanding of where things are, and that the right amount of payment is flowing down to the right people who deserve to get that. So
That's right.
that's really incredible.
Yeah, and I think one thing that the inspections do too, and having eyes on a project at all times at every single draw, is oftentimes it can open up a dialogue where there may be some challenges. It's an indicator if a contractor is invoicing for work that hasn't been performed. You're catching that up front, and it's an indicator that maybe there are some financial challenges going on with this client. And so we believe that you catch potential issues before they become major problems down the road by having that visibility. So
I have a lot of questions for you, but yeah.
Sure.
So and this might be my own ignorance, but when I think of funds control, I often connect it with maybe contractors that aren't as financially strong as others, and so that's one way to make sure that they honor their payment commitments and things like that. But
True.
Is that the right way of looking at funds control? I mean, is funds control applicable in every circumstance for parties to consider?
That's a great question, Mark. And I'm going to tell you that, me coming from the lending industry, there is not a private sector construction project that gets funded in this country without fund control and the lending side of the business and lending industry. Whether a lender is managing that fund control process internally or whether they're using a third party, they are controlling those funds, collecting lien waivers, collecting invoices, and doing site inspections to make sure that work is being performed. And I truly believe it's necessary. The surety industry is a little bit different. They're used to being or utilizing fund control as a tool only when they think there is a potential problem or the contractor is trying to stretch and increase the bonding capacity, or maybe he's had an issue in the past, or maybe his cash flow or his reserves aren't quite there. So they use that as a tool, as an additional control mechanism to mitigate risk. I personally believe that it's applicable to every project. Now, there's some pushback that the industry has from a cost standpoint, sort of a perception, a negative connotation or a perception around fund control. So we're trying to change that. We want to change that within the industry.
How do you work to change that negative perception? Because that was one of the questions I had. Is I feel like contractors might not have the most positive feelings when something like this is proposed.
Well, and I think that's true on both parts. I think contractors have that feeling. I think the producers have that feeling, and I think the sureties have that feeling, and all for different reasons. And so let's start with the sureties, because I think that's an important piece. The sureties that utilize fund control are oftentimes hesitant to use it as a tool because of the cost constraints or because of the pricing that it impacts their bond, or it impacts the cost of the overall bond structure. So for instance, the traditional pricing model in the surety space is fund control is going to cost an additional 1% of the bond amount, a bond premium. And so sureties get pushback from the producer who brings them that bond, who may be shopping it on behalf of their contractor. And so if they have if the producer has 3 or 4 sureties to choose from, or options and bond options, you can see why a surety would have concerns about insisting upon fund control being utilized as a tool, because they want to write a bond that's competitive. They want that business. And so there's price pressure, if you will. And they have a tendency not to want to use it as a tool because they don't want to be uncompetitive on their bond pricing. So, right. And the same goes for the producer who's working on behalf of that contractor. He's shopping 3 or 4 or 5 different bond quotes, and he's probably going to pick the one that's cheapest for this contractor, because he's trying to make that contractor happy and he wants to retain that client. So everybody wants to make their clients happy in the chain, and we're trying to do the same thing. So we've recognized the problem, and we're trying to change that perception of fund control. And we're doing it a couple different ways. The first thing that we're doing is we're not charging 1%. We're basically eliminating any upfront fees for the contractor. So it just makes it much more financially feasible for the contractor. We're not collecting that fee up front, and it reduces that cost dramatically so that it's much more competitive for the surety, for the producer, and ultimately the guy who's paying it, the contractor.
So, yeah, and that's something, so it sounds like there's flexibility with funds control companies to look at their model and pricing in general. Would that be correct?
Well, Mark, I'm going to tell you there's probably 4 players in the surety space that provide this service. And we're newer to this space. We're not a new company. We've been around for 17 years, but we're a newer company to this space. And I think that we're changing the way that surety looks at fund control, not as a negative tool, but as a real positive tool to really mitigate risk and to be a minor cost increase that can really enhance the contractor too, and allow him to increase his bond capacity, allow the surety to mitigate risk, and make it a win-win for everybody involved.
Oh, you mentioned that funds control can help a contractor increase their bonding capacity. How can it do that?
Well, it does it in a way because the sureties are. I'll give you an example, Kat. So
yeah,
let's say a surety has a contractor. They've been writing bonds in the $3 to $4 million range for the last 7 or 8 years, and his financials support 3 or 4 projects on the books at any given time, and they're very comfortable writing bonds in that $3.5 to $4 million space for this contractor, and over again. And he gets a project that comes up with the city of San Diego, and it's a $7 million project, and he doesn't have the capacity. His surety doesn't have the capacity, or he goes to the surety and says, hey, I need a larger bond because I want to bid on this project. And the surety says, well, how do we do that with just out taking on that much more risk? So we don't think he quite has the capacity to bid that type of a project. Let's utilize fund control as a tool. And so by controlling the money, the flow of the money, and getting visibility on that project, and making sure that the downstream payments are going to a third party and subs and material suppliers are now getting paid, they can really mitigate that risk and feel comfortable increasing that contractor's bonding capacity. So the contractor benefits, the producer benefits, and the surety benefits by they keep that contractor in-house, and he doesn't have to go somewhere else to get that bond.
And we keep hearing how construction and contract prices are going higher and higher and higher. So it seems like something like that it must be more frequent that you're seeing someone's past capacity not necessarily match up with the contracts they're pursuing now.
For sure. Yeah. And the other thing that it does too is, it really provides a tremendous amount of budgetary transparency, not only for the contractor, but the surety, because you can see where every dollar goes on that project. I mean, we're taking the cost breakdown, we're loading it into our system, and every dollar out is tracked and who gets paid for what purpose. And so you can really, really analyze and take a deep dive into that project. And from an accounting standpoint, it's great for the contractor too, because they get this back-end accounting platform that's super sophisticated, and they can track every dollar and move money in the budget if they need to. And so it's pretty powerful. I think once contractors get comfortable with it, it can be a really valuable tool that can help them. So.
Now, is fund control used just at the prime level, or it can be used at various tiers on the project?
Yeah, it can be used at various tiers on the project, Mark. Even subcontractors, absolutely we can manage fund control for a subcontractor for sure. So generally, it's the prime contractor that's brought in, but for sure, it's subs that can also be used for.
That's great. Well, when you're looking at the future and what's coming down the pike, is there anything that's keeping you up at night when you're thinking about that?
Gosh, during the COVID years, I lost a lot of sleep with just
feel like we all did.
Construction projects, stalled construction projects that just took exponentially longer periods of time to complete. So anytime you have projects that take longer than what they were expected, and there's delays and cost overruns, it's impactful for everybody, not just the GC, but the subs and material suppliers. Can really cause a strain on all parties involved in that project. So, including the municipality who needs that project completed for whatever their purposes are. So, extended projects, to come back to your question, extended projects are something that we will opt for. And we watch for that. One of the things that our software platform does, and we notify sureties, is we watch for gaps in draws. So to give you an example, an indicator when a project is not drawing every 30 days, that's an indicator that there could be some problems. So you get a project that hasn't drawn any money for 60 days, that's one you should probably start watching, because what's going on? Why are they not drawing funds out? What stalled the construction? So we watch for those kind of indicators. So yeah,
that's really interesting.
I mentioned a lot of things that I would sleep over, didn't I?
So does that mean then you're helping position, let's say, the parties to be more proactive to avoid claim situations in the first place?
Mark, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think part of our offering are inspections. So you have, as a surety, as a producer, you have visibility into that project at every single draw. So that means in real time, you can log into our portal, see exactly what's going on the project. You've got real-time photos to see what's happening on that project. You see when the last draw was, where the money's going. And certainly you see indicators, red flag warnings, if there hasn't been draws. You can see, oh my gosh, this guy hasn't drawn money since November of last year. What's going on in this project? Maybe we need to have La Mesa go back out there and do another inspection because he hasn't drawn money since the end of November. We'd like to see what's going on today and where that marries from the November inspection to today. Let's see what progress we can see on the site. So yeah, I think those are all tools, Mark, to reduce risk and catch problems before they become disasters. So yeah.
That's great, Marcus. Thank you for being on with us today and kind of talking us through funds control and how it can be a tool. It's been great. Hopefully we can have you back again sometime in the future.
Yeah, well, we're here to help. I love being on, love educating people and kind of talking about it and talking about the nuances. But yeah, we're passionate about what we do. We like what we do, and like helping contractors and improving their businesses and helping them grow.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety, brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.